Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mark Mamikonian. I'm the Director of Academic Affairs at the National Association for Armenian Studies and Research, NAASR. And on behalf of NAASR, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us for this holiday open house. I'm wearing my official holiday open house red shirt for the occasion, and as well for tonight's lecture, which tonight is the third in our series of 3 talks in 2023 that have focused on the art of Armenian mural painting in different aspects, and that is supported by a grant from the Dadurian Foundation, whom we thank for their generous support. The previous 2 were excellent talks by Christina Maranzi and by Karen Matavosian, and we're, again, very grateful to the Dadurian Foundation for their support of our work. A reminder that until midnight tonight, everything in our bookstore is 20% off. And I'm told that doesn't mean that the bookstore is actually physically open until midnight, unless you're online. This applies to online sales, but don't wait till the 11th hour. Also, now, through the entire month of December, all profits from the sales of the beautiful Michael Aram Eternity Ornament, which was created a few years ago specifically for NAASR, a miniature form of the beautiful sculpture in front of our building. All the profits from the sales of these ornaments during the month of December will be donated to the Tufenkian Foundation to support their efforts on behalf of Artsakh refugees in Armenia. It's a beautiful decoration for your tree, or just to have on display year-round, or both. And again, these are available in our bookstore and online. It's a nice gift. Tonight, as far as we know, will be our last program in 2023, a year that's been painful for all Armenians everywhere, as well as for many others around the world. I've noted before that we do our work at NAASR in the light, or maybe better to say in the shadow of this. But we try to carry on because we hope that by providing informative and educational programs, we contribute to the better understanding of Armenian history and culture, and also to the dignity of that culture, even amidst disaster. And I can't think of a more perfect program in that spirit than tonight, which you will see the inspiring work that has been done historically and over the centuries at the Surp Amenaprkich Vank in New Julfa, because we have the privilege of having with us tonight as speaker our colleague and friend Ani Babaian. I get to learn from Ani every day here at NAASR. Tonight, we all get to benefit from her extraordinary knowledge, specifically of the murals of Surp Amenaprkich Vank, a subject with which she is intimately acquainted. Ani serves as curator of NAASR's Mardigian library, where she has worked since 2013. She is also an independent researcher, artist, and art conservator who holds a Master of Fine Arts degree from Al-Azhar University in Tehran, where her thesis was entitled Mutual Influences, New Julfa and Isfahan Mural Paintings of the 17th Century, appropriately enough. She has authored numerous articles on Armenian and Persian art, has participated in conferences held in Iran and Armenia, and given presentations on Armenian art in the United States. She has contributed to the volumes Armenian Frescoes, edited by Karen Matavosian, 2019, and Armenian Communities of Persia, Iran, edited by Richard Hovhanessian, published last year. During her tenure at the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, Tourism, and Handicrafts of Isfahan, Ani worked on numerous important conservation projects, including the murals in the Gavit, or narthex, of Surp Amenaprkich Vank, in Chehel Sotun Palace, and in the Museum of Decorative Arts of Isfahan. She has continued her conservation work for private collections and institutions, including Holy Trinity Armenian Church of Greater Boston and others. Following Ani's talk, we will have a Q&A period, as well as other proceedings. For those of you in the room, please, for the Q&A, if you are able, come up to the microphone and speak into the mic so that you may be heard. And for those on Zoom, please use the Q&A function, and we invite you all to stay with us till the end of the program and beyond here in the building to enjoy refreshments until the wee hours of the morning, or whenever everybody has to leave. So now please welcome our friend Ani Babaian. We'll speak loudly and into the mic.
I'll try. Okay. Sir? Good afternoon. This is a great honor for me to talk about the murals of New Julfa tonight. I would like to thank the Dadurian Foundation for sponsoring the series of the murals. Thanks to NAASR's board and my colleagues, Laura and Silva, and special thanks to Mark. My appreciation to everyone who has contributed to the preservation, conservation, research, and presentation of the art and mural paintings of New Julfa. Many thanks to you who are interested in cultural values and participating in tonight's program in person, on Zoom, or YouTube. During the talk, you can follow related pictures on screen. Most of the slides are from Amenaprkich Vank, unless otherwise specified. It's good. In the 17th century, New Julfa became a center for one of the traditional Armenian arts, murals or wall paintings, which developed into directions, religious and secular. Since the churches in New Julfa have always been under the control and care of the local diocese, the religious murals have been protected and maintained. Between 1606 and 1695, 24 Armenian apostolic churches were built in New Julfa. Despite 400 years of diverse historic events, 13 churches still stand today, each reflecting the financial capacity of the parish or sponsor. In contrast, some residential homes were destroyed through neglect and passing of time. Only a handful have been preserved today. While some murals have been lost to time, fortunately, the invaluable source for studying the murals of New Julfa still exist. Three key factors have shaped New Julfa's cultural growth: a rich history, unique circumstances, and creativity. These elements have combined to create an environment where the arts have flourished and thrived. First, New Julfa was established by the forced displacement of Armenians from Julfa or Jura in the present days located in Nakhichevan region of Azerbaijan to Isfahan, the new capital Safavid by Shah Abbas I, who implemented scorched earth strategy during the war between Safavid Persia and the Ottoman Empire. The exiled population called their new home New Julfa or Norjura in honor of the town they left behind in Nakhichevan. Second, the Armenian merchants of New Julfa established trading houses and bases in prominent commercial cities and centers in the East and in Europe, and became an influential force. Here was an opportunity for the merchant class of New Julfa to continue the tradition of church-building activities of Armenian noblemen of the past. Third, Armenian artists and artisans have the opportunity to display their talents and skills in the creation and flourishing of various forms of art, such as outstanding manuscripts, murals, and architectural structures. For a long time, I wondered how a displaced people who went through such a challenging forced deportation journey, described by the 17th century historian Arakel of Tabriz, could create such a strong community. Recent events in Artsakh made me realize something new and unspoken. Their main reason for what they created was due to a strong desire to survive and keep their identity alive. In short, the flourishing of various forms of art, particularly murals, can be attributed to the support of Shah Abbas I and his successors, the financial and social influence of prominent merchant houses, and the dedicated hard work of skilled artists and artisans. The best example of the focus of my talk this evening is Surp Amenaprkich Vank in New Julfa. Now I would like to take you to Surp Amenaprkich Vank and draw your attention to the murals, intending to offer a brief overview of the artistic styles, the artists, the projects, to conserve the murals, and new findings discovered during the conservation process in a short time. I was fortunate enough to be involved in the conservation projects of the Gavitz mural from 2001 to 2006, while I employed by the Cultural Heritage Organization of Isfahan. According to the history of New Julfa, Surp Amenaprkich Vank, also known as the Holy All-Savior Monastery, named after the main church in Old Julfa, was built immediately after Armenians were resettled around the year 1605. 50 years later, the prelate David I, having persuaded all Vartapes and the people, unquote, to advocate for the demolition of the, quote, inconvenient and undecorated building, unquote, the decision was made to rebuild a new church with modern aesthetic tastes. The construction project was successfully completed, allowing us to read the inscription above the western entrance, quote, by the work of superior of this holy monastery, Vartape David, with the participation and donation of the population of Jura, and was completed in the year 1664. May all the masses held in the Bipart and portion tribute to the living and dead, unquote. Please note, Vank in Armenian means a monastery, and Surp Amenaprkich Vank serves as both a monastery and as the seat of the Diocese of Isfahan and the southern part of Iran. Until the mid-20th century, it also played a significant role for Armenians in India. Today, the complex includes the magnificent Surp Amenaprkich Church, who known as Hovsep Arimatatsi Church, so named because it houses a relic of Joseph of Arimathea, who is known in Armenian as Hovsep Arimatatsi. The complex further features the Khachatur Kesaratsi Museum, the Armenian Genocide Monument, the Archbishop Chancellery offices, a bell tower, a clock tower, a library, a printing house, a new ethnographical museum, and the manuscript restoration department. In the yard of Surp Amenaprkich Vank, a reproduction of a khachkar from Old Julfa stands, dedicated to the memory of the first Armenian primate, Archbishop Mesrop, and his successors. This serves not only as a reminder of the 400-year-old Armenian diocese, but also as a silent requiem for the destruction of thousands of khachkars, the sole witnesses to the glory of old and historical Julfa. The courtyard also contains tombstones of the memories former prelates and laymen who were laid to rest there. The appearance of Amenaprkich Vank, like other Armenian churches in New Julfa, is different because of the use of brick as the basic building material instead of the traditional stone, and in many ways resembles mosques except for the exterior decoration. The exteriors of mosques during the same period were decorated with ceramic tiles, whereas in Armenian churches, the use of ceramic tiles can see only in the lower part of the interior walls or the bema, or as exterior decoration above the door. As we saw, the Annunciation is above the western door. You are able to see Armenian architects adopting and adapting styles from the local architecture, and thus creating a completely new form of Armenian art influenced by Safavid architectural tradition. The interior of the church is entirely covered, presenting a visually captivating space at first glance. The floral decoration patterns immediately capture your attention. Without conscious notice, your eyes cross the intricate details, exploring various styles and techniques that ultimately guide your gaze toward the center of the dome. As you spend more time within, you become aware of being surrounded with over 150 individual murals and a floral belt. The decorations with their shared imagery and patterns unintentionally draw the viewer's focus towards the center of the dome. These visual experiences, guided by the joy of aesthetics, emphasizes the importance of these intricate details, deserving special attention. Based upon the murals, one can easily conclude that mural paintings was not a new art form for the Armenians of New Julfa. Unfortunately, it is currently impossible to trace the churches or architectural structures with paintings due to Azerbaijan's actions in Nakhichevan, which involved the destruction of 98% of all Armenian churches and monuments there. Despite this, written records and photographs documenting mural paintings and decorations serve as evidence of the churches in Old Julfa in Nakhichevan. The lament of the 17th century David Geramenti can give us a picture of how the churches were decorated in Old Julfa. I'm translating this poem. The churches were decorated. The censers were gilded. The curtains were with gold threads. The gospels and crosses covered by gems. The altar and the sanctities were joy for the viewers. The murals in Surp Amenaprkich shows scenes from the Old and the New Testaments of Saint Gregory Elementar's life, floral ornaments, and bands of ceramic tiles. From the dome to eye level are paintings in a logical order based on the Bible. It starts with the 8 murals of the Genesis between the 8 windows in the main dome. Then from the right of the altar, the stories from Old Testament, and from the second row, the New Testament. Scenes from both Old and New Testament are presented as a typological pairs based on the theological understanding that the events surrounded in the New Testament were anticipated and foretold in the Old Testament. The lower row of the murals at eye level shows scenes from the Armenian church history and of the teaching and of the miracles of Christ. Now, I will focus on a few selected murals. One impressive mural is at the altar. This image on the flyer is a close-up of this special mural. At the top, there is a painting of the Trinity, God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. On both sides, you will find the apostles with their names written at the bottom. The scene feels peaceful and welcoming, with lively colors making the angel reliefs in the bottom stand out. There is also a remarkable large oil painting of the resurrection of Christ from 1660. Below the altar are the tomb of Hachatur Gesarati, who established the first printing press in Iran in 1633, and his successor, Archbishop David I, who played a crucial role in building and improving this church. Here I need to emphasize that the curtains, table decorations, carpets, and ceremonial objects create a beautiful harmony with the decorative motifs and murals. The largest mural of the church is the Last Judgment, above the southern entrance. There is so much depth in this mural. We could discuss for over 2 hours. This amazing mural shows the layers of the Last Judgment. Maybe the lower part of the painting gives a scary image from the Last Judgment, but on the top, the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Holy Spirit, and the Christ, with the Saint Mary and John the Baptist, the 12 apostles, and other saints, give a peaceful impression. Then the second part is the salvation. Here we can see Hoja Avedik, the successful merchant who sponsored the interior of the church, kneeling before Christ and holds the cross. The third section of the Last Judgment is the Archangel Michael in the center. The fourth part is hell with scary scenes, dragons, flames, and suffering souls. If we examine the figures and their costumes closely, it is possible to infer that many of them represent real characters alongside Hoja Avedik. This is the largest mural not only in this church, but also compared with other murals on the same theme in New Julfa. More than 180 characters are in this mural, but the movements of the forms and shapes are the expression of the gazes led you to the top of the painting, where it reminds you of the concept of the understanding of the Last Judgment. Here, we can see the influence of both European and Armenian art depicting the Last Judgment. Here we can see paintings showing the 7 sacraments of Armenian Church within circular frames surrounded by a floral band. At the lower portion of this artwork, positioned at eye level, are paintings of the torture of Saint Gregory the Illuminator and the baptism of Armenian king Tertat by Saint Gregory. This is one of the beautiful pictures that you can see here. In comparison to larger murals above, these lower murals appear smaller. At first glance, the proportions of the figures may seem mismatched with the frames. However, upon stepping back, one realizes that from a distance, they achieve a visual balance. This underscores a key difference between murals and paintings on canvas. Murals often require exaggerated proportions to enhance their visual appeal from various angles and distances. Overall, the decorative motifs occupied an important place in the structures of Surp Amenaprkich Vank. Floral, animal, pictorial, and geometric patterns commonly served as a background for the compositions or colorfully framed the composition, forming a unity with the images. In the 17th century in New Julfa, only the interiors of churches and other structures were adorned with tiles and floral, animals, pictorial, and geometric patterns, as well as inscriptions in Armenian. The most common techniques of tile decoration was the half-trunk, or 7-color method. The inscription of the church asked the faithful people to pray for the sponsor's family members. Through the text, we note that Hoja Avedik, the sponsor of the interior of the church, passed away before the church's decoration was finished. The inscriptions contain the names of his family members. You may notice the blue frames, and I'm sure you can infer that they are protective glasses frame. I'm talking about these blue frames. They are protective glass frames. You will observe that all the murals you see appear well preserved, despite being 400 years old. This suggests that not only were the techniques and materials used by the artists of excellent quality, but also that over the centuries, they have been well maintained. Over the centuries, Amenaprkich Vank, along with the other 12 Armenian churches, were restored. Major repairs prevented some structures from collapsing. These major renovations were often undertaken by amateurs who interfered with the original art. The initial record of conservation efforts at South Amenaprkich Vank dates to 1854. However, the first formalized professional renovation of Armenian churches began later in the 1970s through the efforts of the Italian company Ismeo and was interrupted by the Iranian Revolution in 1979. In 2001, a new phase of relations began between the Isfahan Cultural Heritage Organization and the Diocese Council of the Armenian Church of Isfahan. From the first day that I started my job as a conservator at the Cultural Heritage Organization of Isfahan, my dream was to do conservation project at the Armenian churches. So with one of my colleagues, finally, I began my work and my dream became a reality. The result was starting a restoration and conservation program with work on the most damaged murals, which at that time were murals in the narthex of St. Amenaprkich Vank. At the same time, the Diocese Council of Armenian Church of Isfahan initiated the cleaning of the murals in lower part of the church. Following slides, you will see images from the conservation projects at the narthex. Many slides have two images, one before and the other one after the conservation. The narthex or Gavid has 6 thematic paintings: the Annunciation, Saint Mary with the Apostles, Christ is taken down from cross, angels, many crosses, and decorative panels. Here is the inscription of the first documented report of the conservation activity at Surp Amenaprkich Vank from 1857. According to the inscription, at that time, the murals were cleaned and the ornaments were repaired. Above the northern doorway of the Gavid, there is the following inscription, quote, "In the year of 1857, this Gavid was restored and the church paintings were cleaned in this time when Bishop Thaddeus was the superior," unquote. It appears that during the end of 19th century or the beginning of 20th century, there was extensive damage to the murals of the Gavid. In the 1940s, Sarkis Khachaturian, in a letter to Arshak Chobanian, mentioned about damaged and careless paintings in Surp Amenaprkich Vank. It seems that in 1950s, this section was covered with a layer of plaster coating. In the 1970s, the plaster layers were removed and the conservation work was left uncompleted until I began and completed the work. We had a vision to include the church in the World Heritage List, and our conservation efforts were founded on through research, well-documented findings, and a repeatable process. I would like to explain the basic principles of the mural conservation. The conservation of murals follows basic principles and rules. Projects should commence with thorough research on the structure, considering its historical, aesthetic, and technical aspects. Subsequently, documentation, including a critical report, illustrated reports, drawings, photographs, and mapping, is important. Finally, apply the best conservation methods and materials that allow for future treatments. As murals constitute an integral elements of the building or structure, integrate their conservation with the overall structure and surroundings. All interventions such as stabilization, cleaning, repair, and pigment reconversion should be minimal to maintain authenticity. The primary goal of restoration is to improve the legibility of the form and content of the mural while respecting the original creation and its history. Restoring aesthetical plays a crucial role in reducing apparent damage and focuses on non-original materials during the conservation process. You should bear in mind that when performing a restoration, it is not acceptable to restore a missing piece without a clear evidence of its condition before the damage. Using UV photography was also an instrument. You can see the UV photography before we have started to the conservation project. A little about the techniques at Surp Amenaprkich Vank. We have water-based paints or tempera, also known as egg tempera, as well as oil based on a plaster base. In 16th century Europe, the use of oil-based paints became common as an easier way. It was easier to paint murals. In the 17th century, new Julfa artists started using oil-based paints that were imported by the Armenian merchants. Above the entrance is Christ being taken down from cross. Here you can see two different paintings with the same subject. The newer one is a copy from a work by an Italian painter, which was done on the top of the older painting with the same subject. For the historic fact, both layers were preserved. Professionally, conservation must be well documented to show the historical appearances and previous layers of the painting. It seemed when the painting ended up in New Julfa, maybe the leaders of that time liked it more and wanted to paint on the old one. On the bottom is a beautiful painting of the Nativity done in maruflage technique, which means it is an oil painting on canvas and then attaching and affixing the canvas to the plaster. Later in 2006, a conservation project was done on the main dome with a group of Iranian experts. The dome has been completely restored with golden decoration, between which white doves are depicted on the pale blue background. These are 8 windows in the dome of the main dome. Above the windows, there are figures in 8 circular frames. One of them, according to the tradition, depicts David I, later I will show you that picture. Right. In 2008, during the restoration of Surp Amenaprkich Vank's dome, a small inscription was found in the center of the dome. I was lucky to be asked to read the inscription. Imagine for centuries, the names stayed unknown. Even the important 19th century New Julfan historian Haruchun Derhovnanian did not mention their names. It contained the names of the floral decoration artists Derhovanes, Sarkis, Derkirakos, dated 1667. Identifying the dome's painters proved that the beautiful dome, decorated using the Lyachini technique, was done by Armenian artists, and their names were added to well-known artists of New Julfa. The techniques of Lyachini was used in Isfahan during the Safavid period. First, patterns or motifs were drawn on the prepared wall. Next, the patterns were filled in using a special red clay known as Armenian bole, which was then repeatedly layered to distinguish it from the background. The work was done patiently, layer by layer. After reaching the desired height, all the motifs were then covered with gold leaf, and the background was often painted in lapis lazuli color. The quantity of, before I'm starting the other subject, this is that painting that before I talked about it, David, the superior of Surp Amenaprkich Vank, on the dome between the windows. The quantity of the overall interior designs of the structures and the differences among the patterns of those designs attest to the existence of distinct and separate artisan groups. We don't find often know the names of these artists, not just in Norjura or New Julfa, but also the painters of Isfahan's palaces. It might have been a thing back then not to sign every picture. It could be seen as immodest. Still, some names of artists have been preserved in the Amenaprkich Vank. Among the mentioned names, the name of the following artists is found in this inscription on the walls of Amenaprkich Vank: Der Stepanos, the painter; Kyrakos, Simon, the painter; and Tatus. We should recall that among the Armenians who were deported to New Julfa were clergy who flourished and continued their work in their new home. It was they who established the New Julfa School of Miniature Painting. The arts of miniature painting, calligraphy, the illumination were also taught at the Surp Amenaprkich Monastery School. The clergy was actively engaged in the art of miniature paintings. Coming across with their is common, as many of them were clergy. The 18th century New Julfan historian Khachatur Jughayetsi provides information about Hovhannes Vartapet Mrshkus. Hovhannes Vartapet Mrshkus was a theologian fluent in Arabic and Persian, the author of many books, a multi-talented Vartapet who participated in the decoration of Surp Amenaprkich. One of the murals of Amenaprkich, which is this, is a composition in which a monk is seen praying before Mary and the Christ child. According to Khachatur Jughayetsi, the monk may be Hovhannes Vartapet. On the screen, you can see a reprint of his book. According to the history, many times his knowledge and success in the theological discussions saved the Armenians of New Julfa from forced conversion to Islam. Until now, no document or inscription has confirmed the involvement of European artists in the murals of the Armenian churches and residences. Instead, the only preserved inscriptions are the names of Armenian artists written in Armenian. The Armenian artists were in contact with other local and European artists, and it is possible that they were in contact also with European artists. For now, we leave the discussion of possible artists based on the assumptions related to painting styles. Aram Yeremian, the Armenian writer and art critic who wrote articles and books on New Julfa's art, observes that the talented artists remained hidden in obscurity. This was the ethos of ancient times. Skilled artists, true exceptional with their talent and brush, were humble and modest in their approach. The Armenian merchants were exposed to cultural productions from other parts of the world and passed on this knowledge to the Armenian community of Iran, played an extensive role in the development of art and in the transition of Armenian art from traditional to modern. The mural painters of New Julfa were familiar with the European Renaissance and modern painting, as well as with printed images of the Bible of Wolfgang Gerevanti and previously published Bibles in Europe. Armenian artists were well acquainted with Armenian traditional styles and Iranian art. Today, many scholars suggest that the origin of these murals were printed images of Wolfgang Gerevanti, Vank, or other Dutch artists. However, I want to pose two questions initially. Perhaps they used the prints as the primary source. But what were the origins of the prints? Certainly, the manuscripts were the source. Secondly, imagine the courage, creativity, and skills of the 17th century artists, both known and unknown, who could transform small black and white prints into large murals. They produced unique and incredible work with a rich color palette. The artistic decoration of the structures in New Julfa results from a combination of traditional Armenian style with new European and Iranian styles and techniques. The art created by Armenian artists in New Julfa, primarily for the viewers, should not be considered within narrow categorizations such as purely Armenian, purely Iranian, or purely European. Instead, it is a fusion of traditional practices with local contemporary influences, giving rise to a distinctive new artistic school. The origin 17th century movement in New Julfa marked the initial phase of the transition from medieval to modern Armenian art. It requires serious study and attention to the preservation, restoration, and presentation of this heritage as a unique phenomenon in the history of Armenian, Iranian, and why not, the history of 17th century global art. At present time, hundreds of tourists are visiting Amenaprkich Vank every day. The Armenian young and creative generation are organizing educational and cultural programs at Amenaprkich Vank. The Armenian churches are included in the list of planned renovation in Isfahan province. The Diocesan Council of Armenian Church of Isfahan, in collaboration with the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, Tourism, and Handicrafts of Isfahan, and the base of historical churches of Iran, are actively working to include Surp Amenaprkich Vank on UNESCO's World Heritage List. The endeavor follows the successful addition of 3 Armenian historic sites in Iran, Surp Tadeus, Surp Stepanos monasteries, and Zortzor Church in 2008. The Islamic Republic of Iran is Armenia's only neighbor that supports efforts to restore and preserve historical Armenian monuments. Now, I want you to invite to a 2-minute tour of the beautiful church. I want to thank also my cousin that who made this, produced this short movie for this event. My cousin. Okay, thank you.
Stay here. For those online, again, please, if you would like to submit questions on using the Zoom Q&A, please do so. And I will try to pick them up. And in the room, if you would like to please come up to the microphone to ask a question, I would welcome that as well. And first of all, I want to thank Ani for this incredible presentation.
I'm sorry
I had the opportunity to read the text earlier today, and I had the opportunity to scroll through the PowerPoint, but not to get them all together. And it just is amazing, an amazing tribute both to your work as a researcher and as a conservator, but to the unbelievably rich history of the art of this amazing church that one wants to go and experience in person. So
I hope
the video too was really very cool. So thank you so much, and again we welcome comments and questions. And while you're thinking of something extremely clever, I will ask one that's not terribly clever, but compared to other churches in New Julfa, visually, how do they compare to this Surpa Amenaprkich Vank?
When you visit in different Armenian church, the decoration or structures, it is all depends on who was the sponsor of the church. If the sponsor was a merchant, a rich merchant, like Surpa Amenaprkich Vank, or Surp Bethlehem is another beautiful picture that, if you remember in the first slides, you saw 2 murals from that church. Of course, they are beautiful. But if the church was built by parish, the people, they are very, the decoration are very modest, very simple. But of course, because remember this Amenaprkich Vank for 400 years, it was in a center of attention of all Armenians, and the restoration, the conservation, and taking care of this church was, ongoing process, and because of that, this is, I think. I personally also I like the mural paint, the decoration of Surp Bethlehem church and Surp Asbatzatin church, because they are also unique. And you know what? You cannot compare, because every church has is very unique. It's very different. But they are also unique, very unique, and I don't know.
And the subject for future presentations. Question from an audience member online. Next to the entrance door, there were a couple of solid walls without any paintings on them.
Yeah.
Were they built like that, or were they covered over, or were the artworks destroyed?
They were, as I told you, because you saw when you don't have any evidence that how was the decorations, because most of the decoration they have done with the free hand. It was not, for example, repeated in the same that you said, oh, okay, at the missing part you can complete that missing part. They are very free-handed, and when you don't have any evidence that how was before damage, you don't have an allowance to restore or retouching or. But because of that, but because it is very important place, you need to do something that it is pleasant to eyes, and it has rules and principles that how you can do that. That for example, when average people is coming, oh, this is very beautiful and solid, but for the professionals, they can understand which one is the original one and one is the new one.
Thank you. Also from online, from Amenaprkich, I want to thank Ani for an excellent presentation. I spent many hours in that church during my childhood, and it is good to know the stories behind the murals.
Oh, hello.
Is there, okay, I'll air my ignorance further here. Are there any Armenian churches with similarly decorated outside of New Julfa?
No. Outside of New Julfa, we have the Saint Stepanos Church in the northeast of Azerbaijan in Iran. That it is right now on the list of the World Heritage List. It has mural paintings, but it is earlier than this Amenaprkich Vank. But the New Julfa, for example, many of our churches in Tabriz also they are decorated on mural painting, but not like this New Julfa. This is very unique. I don't want to say, but this is really very unique and.
Yes.
So I might have missed it. How many painters were involved in all the artwork in the church?
Let me just repeat. The question was how many painters were involved in the work.
Unfortunately, as I mentioned, we don't have any real names or how many workshops, but according to all these murals, we assume that there were workshops. For example, there were groups, they were working, and they're leading by a very famous painter who was leading that workshops. But unfortunately, the names are the information. But I hope that one day, this is one of my hopes, somehow we can find any document in somewhere that it says that, oh, the list of the painters or the list of the artists. This is one of my hopes, dreams. I hope that I can see that one day.
Eden, thank you.
This was a very richly documented presentation, but there was so much information in it that I don't know if I missed the answer to the question that I'm going to ask. I want to know, over what period of time was this entire church, monastery, built and decorated? I know you mentioned 1605 and so on. How many years?
It is according to the construction of this new church, because as you mentioned, it was the first church was 1605. That it was very simple and after 50 years, when they rebuilt this beautiful church, it took 9 years the construction of the build. But we have, for example, that I mentioned about Amenaprkich or the Tatos, another painter. For example, in the next to Tatos' name is date 1739, something like that. That it means that it is during the 18th century or 17th century, the process of the decoration of the painting was continued. But right now we know that the dome was 1667. We have the date. We have the date of the mosaics. We have the dates for many paintings. But I think this is the main murals or main structures was in just, we can say, 17th century. But the lower part, maybe in early 18th century, this is continued. For example, that Gavit that I was working, and I showed many pictures. Right now I'm not going because it's another maybe for future. But according to the brush strokes and the styles, it is 18th century. And also, for example, I'm trying to put together who was the painter. I'm a little close to find who was the painter, but I hope that one day, I don't know.
Yeah, Nancy.
It was great to see all these the illustrations and your work on it. I'm curious how many other Armenians have worked on the art. And the other question, I noticed there was a curtain in one of the pictures. I was curious if some of the pictures are sometimes covered.
On the altar.
Oh,
On the
is the
altar.
altar-
Actually, altar has a very beautiful curtain that first I tried to put on my slideshow, but then I said, oh my God, the top of it has an 18th century beautiful curtain that is handmade and is very floral. And, because it's a church and, during the ceremony, sometimes the curtain is closing, and during the 40 days before the Easter, and also this is 40 days, the altar is closed. And the other questions about your question was about the artists who are doing the conservation work there. Yes, of course. At that time when I was working, one very famous artist who passed away many years ago, whose name was Yesai Shaijanian. He was in a group and he was worked with the Ismail-Italian group for a short time in the Amenaprkich Vank. But when I was working at the Amenaprkich Vank, another Armenian expert, whose name is Sedrak Nazarian, and also he was, an very old generation, that from the young generation, right now, I'm very happy and pleased for the last trip that I went to Iran, and I saw that right now in Amenaprkich Vank they have a restoration department that they are restoring, doing the conservation of the papers and books. And a young expert whose name is Toma Galestian, he's working on that in that department. Yes, they are. But unfortunately, they're doing this is not easy job. First, you have to love that, because it's not easy job, unfortunately.
In Mehri, just on the Armenian side of the Arax River, there are a number of churches that have a lot of murals in them. Those murals before or after the ones that you discussed, and stylistically, are they similar or are there
Actually,
major
this is,
differences?
you know, that part, that Govit that has many paintings that very similar, that part. The Meghres murals are there from the last generation of Hovnatanians family, I think 18th century, something, right now I don't remember the century. The last generation, they are after this Amenaprkich Vank. And you know, again, this is, for example, we don't have any document yet, but you know, maybe Hovnatanians, different generation, they also visit, they have the chance to come to New Julfa and have time to paint. This is just assumption. We need to work on it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you said the main structure of the building is brick in bricks.
Yes.
In bricks. Was the brick locally available at the time?
Yes.
Or was it purposely made for the project?
No, because most
Question is
structures.
about the brick.
Yes, brick. Yes.
Yes.
Most structures in Isfahan there are
Locally available?
yes, brick, because Isfahan they don't have mountains like Armenia or stones. We don't, you know, in Isfahan there are all structures are made
And
by.
also the other question, the main structure inside the building, the columns, the archways, and the domes were made of bricks.
Yes.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
There was no concrete.
And it is I'm not sure the terms, but maybe Michel can help me. The domes is there are two layers. You know, we are inside. We are seeing this part of the ceiling, and from outside we are doing. And there are a space. I have that. I saw that, and I went there. That you can go there. This is a. Yes, and they are all made by brick.
At the time, I mean, it was quite difficult.
Of
to
course.
make the design with bricks, whereas now people are using the steel or.
Yes, and this is, you know, all churches are by brick, all palaces, mosques.
Got to use what's there.
Yes, because it was a local. Oh, well.
Agree.
First of all, thank you for reminding us and showing us that sort of Armenian cultural splendor is still valued by non-Armenians in some parts of the world rather than being destroyed. I think this is sort of, after this year,
Yeah.
we needed to see this. We needed to remember, like, this is out there in the world and not just something we're mourning the loss of. I have maybe 2 and a third questions, and they may be sort of unfair because they're a little they're looking at this talk and thinking sort of in a broader context. But I'll throw them out, and you can feel free to tell me they're not good questions. The first one is, I'm thinking a lot about Iran, Azerbaijan, to some extent Turkey, but particularly Azerbaijan, in the way that they represent or misrepresent Armenian cultural heritage as Armenian or not Armenian. And I'm wondering if there's, especially thinking about Nakhchivan and the links to New Julfa,
Yeah.
the artistic links, which, as you said, you can't really research because of the destruction that's happened. But I'm wondering if some of the sites that Azerbaijan is mischaracterizing, for instance, as Caucasian Albanian, whatever the heck that is, are similar enough artistically, architecturally, and maybe in terms of the artistic work that we can see, that helps dispel that kind of view that these are not Armenian because they're tied. So that's the first question. So maybe it's unfair. Second question is a little bit more contextual, and again, maybe unfair. But I'm thinking this is a really rich cultural heritage, not just for Armenians, but also Iran. And thinking about these being available in Iran, and you pointed out they're relatively restricted to New Julfa, but there are other places that Armenian cultural heritage is. Have these had any role in past Iranian cultural production or contemporary, they sort of been rediscovered. Like, who's the audience? Like, I know these are churches, but do average Iranians see these, go to them, celebrate them? And again, I'm not an expert on Islamic art, but I know the human image issue is very complicated for Islamic art, but there's a lot more than just human images here, and thinking about that. So I was wondering if you can comment, to the extent that you've been aware of this, of how this has influenced other people besides Armenians in Iran.
Actually, Harry, your questions was really good question, and I think these are the different subjects for different But no, that actually, the first question is very, important. I'm not sure if my right now or my response is a good one. I'm not sure, but I will try my best. But right now, if you visit our UNESCO's website or our Iranian cultural administrative or different cultures, you can see that all Armenian churches, they are presented as an Armenian art and Armenian culture. And I have to say that also in Iran, in the part of the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, Tourism, and Handicrafts of Iran, this is working a small organization that is called the Base of Historical Churches of Iran. That one of my good friends, Shirley Abedian, she's heading that excursion, and they're documented all churches. It is not just Armenian churches, all Christian churches. It Assyrians, it could be the different Catholics and other churches. This is, if I say that there are almost around 300 churches in Iran, maybe you were surprised, but this is reality. Especially, it is in the northern part of Iran, in Isfahan, in the southern part of Iran. There are, and just I'm trying to, Arax River, that is in the natural border of Iran and Azerbaijan. There were two small chapels. One was in Iranian sides, and this exact the same the other side of that today's Nakhichevan or Azerbaijan, and it calls Hovivi Madur, or Chapel of Hoviv Shepherd, Hovivi Shepherd. And and for one moment imagine that Azerbaijan, they demolished that church. We have no signs. Of course, we have documents, we have pictures, but instead, Iranian side, they did the conservation works on that church. And if I'm not wrong, in 2017, in the recent years, and they restored all that small chapel. And the second question. In any day, if you visit in Isfahan and Amenaprkich Vank, you can see the thousands tourism, and you have to see that I'm talking, because of this situation of Iran, the tourists are mostly from Iranian tourists or the Arabic countries or the European countries. But this is one of the popular places that everybody wants to come and visit. And right now, when I'm speaking here, because of the Christmas time, they have a Christmas tree in the yard of Amenaprkich Vank, and every day they are visiting, taking photo with Santa. They are taking photo with a Christmas tree in Amenaprkich Vank. And this is because Armenian community right now is a very small community, and they have to also, for maintaining all these structures, of course they need a budget, and they are not, I'm not sure if it was your questions.
Again, these are questions that sort of link your.
Is this live or not? I'm not sure. Did I reply?
He looks happy.
Okay, it's okay.
Yes, quickly, please.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to ask, I noticed, I think it was the mural that had was it 180 people in it, I think? or
Yes,
something
about
like that?
the
I think it
Last
was-
Judgment.
I think it was that one. I noticed a lot of, I think it was that picture, a lot of people were dressed in red and green, talking about Christmas, I guess. But I'm curious about when you're doing restorations, those colors, maybe they're from plants, like, did you analyze, like
Yes.
fragments?
And
so that
you know,
knew?
in the mural paintings, especially in Isfahan, in 17th century or 17th, 18th, 19th, every period they have their own colors. Sometimes with the colors and shapes, you can, say that this is 16th century, 17th century, 18th century. And in the Amenaprkich Vank that you see, this is the very vivid colors of red and blue. This is just for the pleasing of eyes. This is not saying anything else. This is not because, for example, they have only red and green paint. Because they wanted to contrast with the gold and blue. And they need to have, just this is. Yeah.
So before we wind down the program, those of you who were paying very close attention at the beginning when I introduced Ani will have noticed that I mentioned that Ani has been working at NAASR since 2013. So those of you with very sharp math skills, unlike me, can work out that this means that Ani has worked at NAASR for 10 years. Having said that, I would like to ask Silva Sitrakian, NAASR's executive director, to take the microphone for a moment, please.
Mark, maybe it is another, every time I'm working 10 years at a cultural heritage, maybe this is last year that I'm working here. No, I'm going to the next. Oh my God, you said my
Well, Ani, thank you very much for this great presentation.
Oh my God, this is very
and we have a surprise for you and for everyone.
Oh my
I want to take the
goodness.
opportunity to thank you for everything you have done for NAASR, for the library, for your dedication to NAASR. We have prepared a little celebration for
Oh my
those of you who are here. You're welcome to join us. And I wanted to thank you on behalf of the board and also staff and volunteers for your dedication. Yeah, and I pass
Don't
the...
make me cry. I'm not tired. Oh my God,
See, if we-
10 years,
If we'd mentioned this before the talk, it wouldn't have worked very well. So just to emphasize what Silva said, for the past 10 years, Ani has made an incredible contribution to NAASR in general, but in particular to raising the standards, raising the profile, and just in general elevating our Mardigian library. The library has progressed from being a great collection of books, which it was 10 years ago, to being a great library. And there's a difference between those two things. This is to say nothing of her incredible talent as an artist, as an art restorer, and just as a generally nice person. So thank you for being with us, and I hope, again, you and those of you who are watching online join us in saluting and thanking Ani for her talk and for everything.
Oh my God, this is very great. No, I'm very lucky, Mark, that I have the talent to... Thank you. Oh my God, it's very surprising, very unexpected. Thank you all for
And if you're
being
watching
here.
online, you can send in your
Oh,
messages
yes.
of congratulations by email, and we will give them to Ani.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
thank you.
everyone.